right, this is the one I can feel it. Podcast. The first and the best Chiefs podcast. Real ones know the show is called Amateur Hour. The Amateur Hour podcast is now airing on KC Sports Network. Ryan Scott Hall and his Dirkness are back again. We've got football, friendship, and fun. All these shows, we're still number 1, season 12. Oh, wow, here it comes. Welcome, my friends, to Amateur Hour podcast. Man, I can't hit that note right. Podcast! Is that right? Well.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
What is this, Amateur Hour?
Yeah, I ain't no Superman businessman like you. You know, I'm just a
amateur,
I suppose.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Yeah, that's right, folks. The show is called Amateur Hour. I am Ryan Scott Hall, and joining me today, a man that I don't really recognize, is Dirkness.
Woo! Let's fucking go, baby! You already know what time it is. It's Amateur Hour time. We gonna listen to it like it's Chiefs Kingdom, baby! Woo! Woo! Trade deadline talk, baby! Let's go!
It is Happy Halloween. Trade deadline Dirk in full effect. Dude, I don't want to know how you even found that costume. I don't want to know how much you spent on it. But I do want to commend you for the effort and the execution there, Dirk. It's fantastic.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! You already know what time it is. Should I be in character the whole episode?
Oh man, I can't even believe that you're gonna try to.
Let me tell you, Chiefsaholic, he's a goddamn superhero. He's a superhero for wearing that. I don't know if it's the same costume. If he's wearing that at every game for hours on end, there's no possible way. I've been wearing it for like 90 seconds at a time, and I'm just dying.
I was going to say, do you need to change during our break today?
I'll be slowly shedding layers as we go. Yes,
I got the very simple task of just being like 1970s Tommy Townsend. Today, you know,
great, Tommy.
I'm strapped up and everything, ready to go. Trade deadline. How about it, Beach?
Woo!
So, Dirk, Sunday sucked.
Oh.
You
could have seen that coming, huh?
You know, you predicted that the Chiefs would lose, but clearly you weren't expecting that game, were you?
Well, I mean, kind of, yeah. I mean, if you're losing to this Broncos team, it's not going to be a work of art. It's not going to be a 42-38 barn burner. No, it's going to be them uglying the game and forcing turnovers and running the ball, which is what it was. I didn't expect that piss poor of an effort. I didn't expect a 2-score win. I'll say that. That was not really on the cards. But damn, I mean, we've played some games like that. I mean, I've talked about the Titans game quite a bit before. But you slug your way through. We had 9 points through 9 possessions in that game. But then it comes to the fourth quarter and it's like, okay, it's go time. And Mahomes gets it done. The offense gets it done. Well, this time Mecole muffs the punt, so they can't get it done on that drive. Or it's a game like where the Raiders last year, where we get down 2 scores, and it's okay. Mahomes is going into God mode time, and it's time for him to make a play. And we see him drop an absolute dime in the end zone, down 2 scores. Okay, we got a ball game right into Sky's hands, and he drops it. So, I mean, we've kind of seen them before. They usually make plays in those instances. And this time they didn't. And cue the freak out and what we've seen. But really, I got to credit the Bundy curse. Anybody who's closely followed me over the years knows I am an Al Bundy fanatic. anytime everything is going right like that, you just wait for it to turn because bad news is a coming. And with everything going the way it was last week, we're on top of the league. Mahomes MVP favorite, best record. Omena, who comes back, he's having the time of his life. Easy schedule down the road. This young defense, I'm talking up Spags. He's going to be here for the rest of his life. You can see it coming. Everything going right like that, you could see it coming the other way, and that happened in a big way to Denver.
Well, credit you, Dirk, and I guess I have to at least admit that the Chiefs usually have a stinker or two each year, and when you are as consistently competitive and good a team as the Chiefs have been, particularly once Mahomes arrived, but really through the entire Andy Reid era, it takes games like this for the team to lose sometimes. Like the roster is so well constructed that, and especially when you're playing an opponent like Denver or you're playing an opponent like the Colts last year, although, to be fair, that Colts game happened in week 3, and I think a lot of people were maybe expecting the Colts to be a little more competitive than they ended up being. But, we've seen the Titans game that everyone is referencing as one of the worst. I remember really squeaking out a game against the Giants in a stretch of really bad games a few years back. I think we've even seen some numbers that this is not one of, but actually maybe Mahomes' worst games ever. If it's like number 1 or number 2 worst ever. Let me say this. Like, as much as we feel like we have to declare things about this team after 8 weeks, or as much as we, have this need, we feel like we have to speak with such conviction after every game, all we can do right now is offer conjecture about what's going to happen based on a limited sample. There's a lot of football left. And I don't know, it kind of feels good to rant and rave after a loss. I'm sure we're going to do some ranting and some raving. But like, the Chiefs weren't even built to be playing their best football in week 8. I don't necessarily want to see them have 5 turnovers and lose to Denver. But like, Sunday sucked hard, but they're still, I think at the very, very, very least, the Chiefs are meeting expectations on a general overall scale. Would you agree? They're 6-2. They're number 1 seed in the AFC. Like, what more can you want?
Yeah,
halfway through the season.
Yeah, we're really about to tear into a team here that is, the number 1 seed in the AFC, like you said, fresh off a Super Bowl win from last year, still and the current Super Bowl favorites right now, with a very unhappy fan base, which is quite a place to be. And yet we will play along because there are some concerns that we need to air out here. They are not unfounded. And we know the expectations for this team. At this point, if there was ever a time where a Super Bowl wasn't the expectation, it was last year, and they went ahead and won the Super Bowl anyways. So we all know the expectations for this team. It's kind of Super Bowl or a bust. But honestly, I think this loss might do them some good. I think they might need a little adversity, a little spice to the season, both for the team and the fans. Anyone who's followed us, I was always worried about, just getting to this boring kind of regular season. It's kind of a slog. And I was like, it's going to be kind of a little too easy. Like this creates some interest. Like, I am extremely, looking forward to the Dolphins game. I'm very excited for that game. And the Eagles game after that. Like, I am pumped for these games. I love to see this team with the back against the wall. And you don't necessarily want a cakewalk to the playoffs. You want some adversity along the way. You need to grow. And this might be like, instead of them telling themselves everything is right, we've been the best team all year, we're just going to do it this way. Maybe they need to look themselves in the mirror and make a few changes. I think a lot of people thought that might be a trade deadline kind of thing. But honestly, with the Chiefs' approach ever since trading Tyreek Hill is to kind of chill out on these big swings. With Mahomes on the rookie contract, you take the big swings. Without him on the rookie contract, you got to be safe with what you do. And the value, these draft picks are extremely valuable because that's the kind of cheap contracts that you need. And that's the philosophy that led to the Super Bowl last year. So foresee them going like all in for a guy. And yet I really think that's what they would have needed to do to make like a big splash, is like sign, go out and get Terry McLaren, who seemed to be the hot name on the streets today. But you're looking at at least a second round pick for that, maybe even a first round pick. And maybe that's why that wasn't even a conversation, because I give a first for something like that. And yet bringing in a guy that's just like, Donovan Peoples-Jones, does that move the needle at all for you? It's a guy, he's okay. But it's just another, wide receiver 3 that you're throwing into a pool full of wide receiver 3s. So, I think this will also do them some good. It'll kind of be interesting to see what they go on. What do you think about that?
Look, it's, don't take this the wrong way, Dirk. I think that we can spin pretty much anything into a good thing when we expect the Chiefs to be the best team in the league, to win the Super Bowl, whatever. I even saw a lot of people being like, I can't wait till Monday or Tuesday when we start to see people say losing to the Broncos this way was actually a good thing. And it's like, well, we kind of sometimes teams need that swift kick in order to maybe recognize some of the things that they need to work on. But is there something that happened in this game that it's like, oh, we didn't know that was a problem for this team? No, I don't want to just chalk it up to 5 turnovers either. I think that that's a little bit lazy, because we got to think about how some of the turnovers happened. Pat, I don't think Pat's, I don't know. Pat's it's not great right now. How about Dirk? You actually started last week by asking me if the Chargers game had changed my low opinion or expectation of the offense. I guess I'll just volley that back to you. What's your concern level after watching that offense against Denver on Sunday?
Well, I would say my antennas are up. I'm sniffing around. I am casing the joint, if you will, as one of my buddy Chiefsaholic might say. But yeah, that was obviously the most concerning game of the season. There's no excusing that one away like I did the last Denver performance, where I was just like, well, they just weren't trying. Obviously, if you get down in a game like that, you're going to start trying, and yet they just didn't have it in this one. So that's the biggest concern we've seen this by far this season. Nothing revelatory there. But I give 2 reasons for confidence. 2 reasons for confidence. And I'm going to give them to you after this break.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Dirk, that was a little premature. Little premature on the break. A little quick on the trigger.
I was trying to get out of this suit. I was trying to do it as soon as I could. But I want to dive right. This is the meat of the meal here. I don't want to get interrupted. No phone calls during dinner time. All right.
Fair.
And Nick's got to be ready next time. This one's on Nick. Okay. Everyone's struggling this week. Everyone's struggling. A lot of mistakes.
Nick wanted to take a moment to remind us that Pat had the flu. Maybe Nick's got. This is a flu game for Nick too. Not the Michael Jordan type, the Pat Mahomes type, which didn't go great.
I think he's handing out candy over there.
One thing though that is going really great, folks, is the Flag Football League at the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. It's in full effect right now. Games are really competitive. They're super fun to watch. All you got to do is head down to Cleveland Park, 4211 Cleveland Avenue. Best way to get in there, 43rd Street entrance. Just go take a look. This Saturday, going to be gorgeous. Come see some of our future Chiefs hone their skills on a local field. Flag football is just one of the money sports programs offered at the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. In addition to flag football, we also see leagues for baseball, softball, basketball, and more. Search volunteer options on helpkckids.org.
Registration is now open for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City's Basketball League. Basketball got started this week, folks. This league is a great introductory experience for any young person just developing their hoop skills. All games are played on Saturday starting January 13th. The postseason tournament championship games will be held downtown at the nationally recognized College Basketball Experience. Register your child today. Check the link in the show notes for more information. Boom. All right. I teased it. 2 reasons why I still have confidence in this offense, which is, been struggling so far. Been a struggle for most of the season. Number 1, the dip in 2021 was much worse than this. They went on a 6-game stretch, averaging 19.6 points per game that season. That included a 41-point explosion versus the Raiders. So it includes that 41-point explosion and still only averaged 19 points a game. Remember, that was the season everybody was doing the 2 deep, and the Raiders came in. They're like, "No, we're going to stick with our, cover 3 defense here. We'll see how it goes against the Chiefs." It did not go well. The next 7 games after that 6-game stretch, where they're averaging 19 points a game, 48, 34, 36, 31, 28, 42, and 42. That's 37.3 points per game the rest of the season. They figured it out. They hit this huge stretch of problems. They figured it out. The biggest problem on the Chiefs right now, I would say, is the turnovers. They got 16 turnovers in 8 games. They're currently 29th in the league in drive percentage ending in turnovers, 29th in the league. In 2021, they had a stretch where they had 19 turnovers in 7 games. That's even worse than what we're doing right now. That's horrific. The next 9 games after that, they had 5 total turnovers. So from 19 turnovers in 7 games to 5 turnovers in 9 games, they figured it out. So, a much different team. They had Tyreek Hill. The point is here, that was a worse stretch, and yet they figured it out and got to a level where they didn't win the Super Bowl that season, but they definitely put themselves in position to win the Super Bowl. And if they just don't shit their pants in the second half of that Bengals game, they might have won the Super Bowl that season. And that was a bigger dip. Good. You want to talk? Go ahead.
I'm impressed with the turnaround in the stats there. I don't even really remember going from not scoring on such a level to scoring on such a level. I guess I don't remember the dip like that. It all kind of blends together sometimes.
Well, because in the end, you don't remember. I mean, a lot of the season, you just forget. You kind of remember how the season ends. The whole goal, especially for a team like the Chiefs, get to January, be playing your best ball then. You don't win Super Bowls in October.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the big things that I was trying to kind of stress in that opening period, like just the fact that we can try to say who the Chiefs are or whatever through 8 games, but think to the Mike McDaniel quote after week 5 or whatever, when they were like, "Oh my gosh, coach, you guys have put up the most yards through week 5. Like, what's your response to that?" And he said, it's like, "Success. That's exactly what we've been planning for all offseason, is to lead the NFL in yards after 5 games." Like right now, I don't want to get too riled up about like where the Chiefs stand, because as I said, there is so much football that's still to be played. The numbers when you were rattling off the scoring, was that last year? That wasn't last year.
No, it was 2021. Okay. They remember 2021, they had the big dip. I mean, it's been the worst offense of Mahomes era by quite a bit until this year. And they just really hit those. I mean, there was some games here. It was the Titans game where we lost 27-3. Only put up 20 against the Bills. We only put up 20 against the New York Giants. You referenced that game earlier. We won 20-17. We played the Packers, the game without Aaron Rodgers. We won 13-7. Destroyed the Raiders, and then beat the Cowboys 19-9. Beat the Broncos 22-9. So it was just like a lot of putrid offense right in the middle of the season. And we were really questioning. It was the first time we were just like, man, have they really figured it out? And eventually, in my opinion, leads to the decision to trade Tyreek Hill, because he had lost value with this offense with teams just putting a player over the top of him. How the Dolphins get around that, I still have no fucking clue. I would love an explanation there. But regardless, yes, that was 2021.
Okay. I mean, listening to Andy on Monday, he was asked by Pete Sweeney, I believe. Like, look, coach, through these years in Kansas City, like you've shown the incredible ability to turn it around, whether it's after a loss, or even after a slow start when the Chiefs were 1-5, 1-6 or something when they 1-5 start and ended up going and making the playoffs. I mean, the ability that Andy's got to recover from things like this, he gets asked about, and he says, well, you can hang your head or you can face the facts and try to get better. And I look at, a lot of people are trying to define this team and say, this is what they need to do, and this is where they are, and here are all the problems. And I just hope that everyone recognizes that's precisely what the Chiefs are doing. I don't think that they're sitting back and saying, oh, we don't need anything at the trade deadline. Doesn't matter. We're fine. We're the best team in the league. Like, they might have made a decision about not making any moves at the trade deadline because they do feel confident with what they have in house. But that team is self-scouting just as hard as you guys are trying to watch the all 22 or fire your takes off on Twitter or whatever. The Chiefs are at work right now trying to get 1% better every single day, and they've got a season-long plan that they're trying to execute. I mean, when we come out of a game like this, it's totally reasonable to worry because it seems like the continuation of a trend where the offense on the surface doesn't seem like it's playing that well. But as I believe you referenced on Twitter a couple hours ago, we've got some dick measuring scale stats out there that are pretty impressive. You want to fire those off there, Durkee? No? No.
What a personal question. What a personal question. Let me get to those soon here. Well, I didn't get to my second reason here before you're
I figured that this was kind of in the first reason category.
Okay, I got you. Sorry, I got Twitter on a small screen. I'm trying to figure it out. Here we go. Chiefs offense, 4th in yards per play, 2nd in yards per drive, 4th in points per drive, 6th in TDs per drive, 5th in EPA per play, 7th in success rate, 4th in EPA per dropback. That's a bunch of nerdy stuff.
Only 2 of those are outside the top 5. I mean, like the Chiefs offense,
for as bad as it's been, you could still say it's a top 5 offense, which is insane. It's just insane.
Well, I mean, I'll give you some context here. All right. I know that people don't care about your fantasy team, but like, just stick with me. All right. Welcome to Amateur Hour. I'm scrolling around. I'm in a 14-team league with my family, and we have a super flex. So generally speaking, 28 quarterbacks are playing. And I'm like looking at the waiver wire, and folks, it's awful. If one guy goes down, it's real bad. And honestly, I would say maybe half of these 14 teams aren't even playing a second quarterback, even though they have them on their bench, because these players are so bad. I'm telling you, the quarterback position right now in the NFL, it's not great. It's not great. We can look at the fact that we've got all of this young talent, all these different names, but I honestly think that after you get outside like the top 10 or 12 quarterbacks, the rest of the league, we're talking like 20 guys, they're just nowhere near that level. It is, as our producer tells us here in the comments, like it is a steep, significant drop-off from like the haves and the have-nots. And I think that club of haves is getting smaller and smaller. And I just, if the Chiefs currently have a top 5 offense and they currently have a top 5 defense, they still have a top, like, look at those DVOA stats. Even after this loss to the Broncos, they're still in the top 5 in DVOA, offensively, defensively, and on special teams. Like, I don't know what to tell people other than, I see some of the excited, like, oh my God, they didn't do anything at the trade deadline. They got to change this. They got to change this. We got to get better in all these different places. And I do think that the team needs to play better football than they did on Sunday. But to this point in the season, there is not an NFL team that is definitively better than the Kansas City Chiefs. There's just not. I guess you could make an argument for the Eagles. We'll play them in 3 weeks. Okay. I'm more excited about what it looks like against some tougher opponents than worried about what they've done at this point.
And also, we went through this last year. Everybody wanted to trade we need a pass rusher. We need a pass rusher. Everybody wanted Brian Burns. And everybody was like, oh, fuck, we didn't do it. We blew it. We're wasting another season on Mahomes here, which, wow, an excuse that actually came back this week. I couldn't believe it. We're wasting a year of Mahomes' prime. Wasting. We're Super Bowl favorites. It's a new thing. The NFL trade deadline actually has action now. When I was a youngin', we did not have any action at the NFL trade deadline. That's really like the last 3 or 4 years kind of thing. I wasn't expecting much, but it was interesting. I mean, people were really losing it. I'm going to touch on this here. So let's get to the receivers. That's what everybody wanted. This is my second reason for confidence in just the offense. I mean, the number one reason for confidence in this team is that the defense is so much better than it has been at any other point during the Mahomes era. This is just 2 reasons of optimism for the offense. The number one was the dip in 2021 and overcoming that. 2022. Okay. Everybody's saying the wide receivers aren't good enough. They're taking their victory laps right now. I get it. And they're not wrong. Like I get what you're saying. I agree. The receivers are not good enough right now.
Sorry, fixing my helmet. Sorry.
What did you spike that? You threw it down after a little tantrum there?
Let's put it back together.
What I still don't understand, what nobody seems to address, I've asked it a few times on here, what has changed from last year? Because obviously the offense was good enough last year, and literally the only change is Juju going out and Rashee Rice coming in. And production-wise, Rashee Rice is now trending in a way I don't have updated projections, but he would be getting close to what Juju put up last year as a member of the Chiefs. I know it's not a perfect one-for-one. Like, they bring different skill sets. They can do different things. Juju's more a veteran presence, and he can find holes in the zone like that. But you're telling me just that drop-off, going from Juju to Rashee Rice this year with similar statistics, and now all of a sudden the receivers just aren't good enough? Like, I don't buy it. I don't think that's a valid excuse. I agree that they haven't been good enough this year. I don't know what the reason for the change is, and yet everybody who seems to be saying that the Chiefs needed to add a receiver or that the receivers aren't good enough to win the Super Bowl this year don't seem to be addressing how they were good enough last year and they got the job done and won the Super Bowl with a very, very, very similar group of receivers.
So if you take a look, which I did right before the show started, just look at what the Chiefs offense did in their 3 playoff games. We have and not just amateur hour, like everybody, when you have reached this level that the Kansas City Chiefs are at, we know that it's more about what happens in January and February. Okay. Take a look at how the offense performed in their 3 playoff games last year. Travis Kelce in that game against the Jags was targeted 17 times. He caught 14 for 98 and 2 touchdowns in that divisional game. Pat Mahomes has like around 100 yards spread out between another few receivers the rest of that day. Kadarius Toney had 5 catches for 36 yards. Juju had 2 catches for 29 yards. Like, there's not a whole lot happening there. Look at the Bengals game. It's when your boy MVS stepped up and had 6 grabs for 116 and a touchdown. You've got Travis Kelce with 7 for 78 and a touchdown. And their next leading wide receiver,
Marcus Kemp,
had 13 yards. Pacheco went 5 for 59 to be able to actually round out that. And then when they get into the Super Bowl, the Chiefs put up 38 points in the Super Bowl. And it looks great on the actual score line. But then you get into the box score. Pat didn't throw for 200 yards that day. Folks, Travis Kelce had 6 for 81. Juju had 7 for 53. You know who their next leading receiver was? Justin Watson with 18 yards. Like, they did not have a 100-yard receiver in the Super Bowl or in the divisional game. Travis Kelce had 98 in the divisional round. But, like, This is not some, oh my God, look at how overwhelming the Chiefs offense is in the playoffs last year. And so the Chiefs were somehow the number one offense in the NFL. Defenses, clearly, it seems like, I mean, look at whatever your favorite website is that covers the NFL. Clearly, your favorite website is KC Sports Network. Like, I totally get that. But if you're talking about NFL coverage, I don't care if it's ESPN, if it's The Ringer, if it's Bleacher Report, if it's whatever. Like, I promise you, there are articles that are being published week after week about the way that defenses are kind of winning this year, the trend of offense being down. And the Chiefs have one of those defenses responsible for those numbers, and they still have an offense that's ranked in the top 5. I wanted the Chiefs to go and make a move. You said that, like, you know, a round 2 or a round 1 might be too rich for Terry McLaurin. And I'm over here thinking, like, I want the Chiefs to figure out who is going to be Mahomes' number 1 option through his prime. That is what I want. And a guy like Terry McLaurin is somebody that I feel good about. He's a leader. He's an A-plus player. That's just a guy that I would love to have on my team. And I would be happy to be like, take a round 2. Take one of our wide receivers. If I have to give you a round 1, I don't care. I'm probably fine with that. And I know that there are other people that don't feel that way. Regardless, I don't think that they have to have that to win a Super Bowl. I think it would make it a lot easier, right? But like, we don't need Kadarius Toney to suddenly go and have 600 receiving yards for the rest of the season in order for the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. They don't need Sky Moore to figure it out and catch 70 balls in the remaining games in order for them to win a Super Bowl. It is not necessary. It's not.
And the way they get it done is with Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the world. We haven't quite seen it this year. I still expect that we will see it. I mean, we've seen 6 years of it now. I don't think that just went away randomly this year. So I expect him to play better. And then incredible coaching, game planning, and play calling, that kind of thing. I mean, people are calling out Andy left and right for his cutesy, short yardage red zone stuff. How did we win the Super Bowl last year? With 2 of the most wide open receivers you've ever seen. That was cutesy play calling in the red zone on 3rd down. So I don't think they forgot, and they just knew how to move the ball. The weirdest thing about this year, and especially this game in particular, the swings and screens and guillotines, those were fucking terrible. Like, every single swing pass that we threw, it seemed like the player was catching it going backwards, and we lost yardage on it. And then the Broncos, they would throw a little swing pass and they'd pick up 12 yards doing it. I felt like that was like the difference in the game. And I've never really seen the Chiefs struggle that much in this, but we know when Andy, starts to not trust the offense. Cause I mean, think about it. When we're dropping back to pass right now, we're either hitting, Kelsey, something quick and short, or Rashee Rice pops wide open, or Mahomes is scrambling and making something happen. Like, that's it. Like, our normal drop back passing game right now is very ugly. And so once he sees that, he doesn't trust it. And that's when he starts going to his package plays. The Broncos definitely seem to have a beat on the package plays, and they failed in a big way. And that's kind of the thing. Like, that's the thing they need to figure out. They need to get that part of their game going, and then the rest of it will come. And so another thing that nobody's really brought up, I feel like Jerick McKinnon has taken a big dive this year. He's 56 catches, 512 yards, and 9 touchdowns last year. This year he's at 15 catches, 126 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Almost half.
A lot of those numbers down the stretch, though. I hate to interrupt, but I thought I thought it was like all in the second half of the year, practically.
It's possible. And I mean, maybe that's a thing that they need to fix here. And maybe they're just kind of saving his body, because I think he is above 30 years old. I think he's 31, I want to say. And so, I mean, that's just a kind of a time. I know he hasn't had a lot of carries on his body, so he's kind of a young 31. But we're seeing a big dip from him. We're not seeing the production from that running back. And he has 23 rushing yards on 11 attempts for the entire season. So that's just a position. That was kind of like where I wanted to look at the trade deadline, is try and get like a receiving back, like an old Patriot style James White, Shane Vereen, Kevin Falk kind of guy. Get a guy like that Mahomes can trust and be his little safety blanket so he can start making yards on these dump downs. Because I am not sure if McKinnon has it. I hope he does. And if he does, I think he adds a big another element to this offense. But we haven't really seen it this year. And so I think that's kind of an area where they're struggling too.
Yeah, he didn't really do much through about week 5, and then started to turn it on. Whatever. Like, he was certainly good down the stretch. I mean, he had a 100-yard game followed by a 70 and a 30 and a 52-yard game receiving in weeks 13, 14, 15, 16. He did 250 of his receiving yards in 4 of the last 5 games. So I think that Jerick McKinnon is a guy that was always going to kind of be stashed for the end of the year anyway.
And if that's the strategy, if that's the strategy, I'm totally fine with that. Like, that's perfectly fine. I'll take the struggles during the first half of the year and just let them come on in the second half.
All right. Let's just take a second. We don't need to take a break, but we do need to just kind of pause for a minute. I'm going to take a sip. Can you get it off, or is your zipper stuck, honey?
Fucking her Dirkness tied it in a double knot. I can't get it, and she took the dog on a walk. I'm stuck. Sweat my balls off.
You're sweating. All right, I'm gonna do something that has a warning label on it. All right, warning label, Chiefs fans. I'm gonna talk about the run game. I'm gonna do it. I know who my coach is, and I'm still gonna talk about it. Look, I think that it's hard to do this. The conversation is rarely fruitful when you consider Andy's track record. It's just kind of like the trade-off that you have to take. His genius doesn't necessarily include running the football. But we are, for all intents and purposes, a dynasty without having done that. Oh, look at that. Chief Concerns with Jason Dunn. Never watched the show. I don't know if it's good.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't know if it's good. But look, folks, I think if we rewind to this Denver game, 8 carries for Isaiah Pacheco, 40 yards. In those conditions, how about worst run defense in the NFL by like 35 yards a game? They at one point had given up like 700 something rushing yards in a 3-game stretch. I know that they're getting a little bit better and Barrett Browning's back and whatever, but how about the weather? How about Patrick Mahomes having the friggin' flu? How about not throwing the ball 38 times? There's no need for it. The Broncos were never like stretching you out. I don't, although at the end of the day, I don't know if beating Denver on Sunday by running the ball down their throats when they are the worst run defense in the league, I don't know if it like teaches the Chiefs anything about themselves. But Andy's refusal to do it when it seems like everything is just sitting right in front of you here. Hey, Andy, this is a weakness that they have. And seemingly on paper, it's a strength that we have. And oh, by the way, the best player in the world had a fever like 12 hours ago. Why wouldn't you just give it to like the 24-year-old that, runs like a friggin' rhinoceros? Like, I just don't understand. And I'm not going to sit here and like pull my hair out expecting Andy Reid to run the ball consistently. But I think it's important that if the Chiefs are actually doing the self-scouting that I was proclaiming 10, 15 minutes ago, because I believe so much in them, they have got to recognize that their running backs, I thought that they were going to be terrible. I mean, I would say Pacheco especially, he is your third most important weapon and probably your second one on offense. If we're talking about the non-Patrick Mahomes division, I mean, he's either behind Kelsey or behind Kelsey and Rashee Rice. And the reason that you would say Rashee Rice is because you need a wide receiver to do some consistent things for you, seemingly. Only allowing Pacheco to have like 10 touches in any football game, it seems criminal to me. It seems like a bad game plan, especially when you start to adjust for all of the conditions of the game on Sunday.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Part of the problem, I mean, they should have done more in the first half. The problem is in the second half, you have one possession until you get the ball with 10 minutes left in the game, down 2 scores.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're already up against it. And, that at that point, it's too late to establish the running game, essentially. So you have the one drive in the second half. They just had these long-ass drives. They had a drive for 8 minutes, 26 seconds. Then we have a simple drive and punt, and then they have a drive for 6 minutes and 30 seconds, and then we muff the punt, and then they're up 21-9. So, play calling in the second half gets a little screwy because it's just so shortened. In the first half, I mean, I'm with you. They should have run the ball more. I'm sure Andy looks at it and thinks the same thing. And we kind of talked about it last week with the Pacheco been struggling lately. His yards per attempt was actually up this week, but he had 3 weeks in a row under 4 yards a carry, at 5 yards a carry this week on only 8 carries. So they need to get the run game figured out. I mean, it should be better, especially against a Denver team that's last in the league in rushing. I think this Denver defense, I think their numbers will be ugly all year, but I think we'll find out that the defense is a lot better than it was, statistically through 6 weeks. So I think that's part of it, but I don't have an answer for you. They should be running at the ball more. And this is where you get into a chance, coming up with the bye week. It's this game against the Dolphins. I'm expecting them to bounce back in a big way. I'm just with the team back against the walls, people counting out Mahomes, people shitting on the Chiefs. This is when they usually respond. So I'm expecting a big effort. If they don't, then they have the bye week coming up. And that's kind of when you figure stuff out. They got to go back to the lab. They got to figure out what's going wrong, and they got to figure out how to fix it. And it's in-house. No more trade talk at this point. You got the guys that you got. How are you going to figure it out? And so that will be an interesting self-scouting time where if we are 9 games in, say the Dolphins beat us by 14 or something, 31-17 or something like that. And it's just like, oh shit. Like, okay, the offense is not fixed. That is when we get to see, one of the best coaches to ever live, one of the best quarterbacks to ever live, go in the lab, and you have 8 more games to figure this thing out and see if they can do it. I believe they can. Although I would have told you before the year that I don't see an 8-game slump happening to start the season. So, I mean, I didn't see this coming either. So it'll be interesting to see. It's an interesting time.
I guess I just I feel like the pretty common retort when you talk about run the ball, Andy, is something about Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the world. Like the most valuable play in the NFL is Patrick Mahomes dropping back to pass. I don't think that that's the case this year. But also, honestly, I don't really care what the metrics tell you about running the ball versus Mahomes throws or whatever. Pacheco deserves more touches because he, to me, is a much better player than most of the guys that Mahomes is targeting in the passing game. He's a better player. And I think collectively as football fans want to see, like, give the ball to your best player, right? Well, Pacheco's not the best player on the offense, but he's sure one of them. And I think that they're going to have to figure out, like, when they really found success in the playoffs, 2 of those 3 games in the playoffs, they were running the ball for like 160, 170 yards. Okay. They committed to running the football in the playoffs in 2022. And it was kind of a revelation for them because, as I said, Pat Mahomes didn't even throw for 200 yards in the Super Bowl. All right. Like, it took being balanced. And really the ultimate success of 2022, how they became the number 1 offense in the NFL, was obviously an excellent season from Travis Kelce, a largely flawless season from Patrick Mahomes as well. But it was all of these little contributions from guys, and you never really knew who was going to beat you. And Mahomes is completing passes to 10 different receivers in just a matter of quarters. And I just think that, like, they are built the same way this year. And so I think that the formula can work, but they have to find that balance in the running game in order for them to reach the full peak that offense did last year. And so it does make me a little nervous to see in a game against the Broncos 8 for 40. It's 25 degrees outside, Andy. Hand the ball off, man.
And a name we haven't mentioned yet so far tonight is Eric Bieniemy. And, we don't know exactly what goes on with play calling. They both have their hands in there. But Bieniemy would be a guy who would kind of be, nudging Andy throughout the game, hey, keep running the ball. And so that might play a part of it. And we know we're looking at this season-long struggles, wondering what the hell is going on. And I listed the changes, and yet even I failed to mention that Eric Bieniemy was maybe the biggest change. Maybe that's bigger than the personnel here. We don't really necessarily assign like passing game success to him because he was the running backs coach, and it's not really his forte. That would seem to fall kind of on Andy, so it doesn't really seem to line up. And yet the evidence, it's a pretty easy case to make. Bieniemy was here last year. The offense was great. It's basically the same personnel this year without him, and they've dropped off quite a bit. So how much stock do you put in the loss of Eric Bieniemy having a real impact on this team right now?
I think that what the Chiefs offense they've just looked a little unsure of themselves at times. And I don't know if having Bieniemy here changes the fact that they're asking every single wide receiver on this offense to like do more than they have in their career before, or at least with MVS, like just be who you've always been. But most of these guys, Sky Moore, never been a starter. Rashee Rice is a rookie. Justin Watson, never been a starter. Kadarius Toney, I don't even know what they're asking of him right now when he's getting fewer than 10 snaps.
Is he alive? He's alive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And a guy that they showed basically no interest in this offseason was their deadline move, bringing back Mecole Hardman. And like, I don't know what we expect from Mecole. I don't know, like, if Chiefs fans are thinking that like Mecole is what is supposed to like get this offense kind of out of the mud a little bit, like, get them puffing their chest out a little bit more. It's possible. He certainly helped like as a red zone threat last year. And you would think it'll probably take a few weeks to just kind of get back into the timing and the swing of things and be inserted into whichever position they want to use him. I don't think it's just like, hey, McColl's back. Cool, let's go. I mean, in some ways, sure. But
well, I mean, you might reach a point though. I mean, look, you need something from Sky Moore eventually. Sky Moore in his last 5 games. I mean, people know he's been hit dreadful, but this is eye-popping. Sky Moore's last 5 games: 8 yards, 15, 22, 11, and 0. That's 55 yards or so in 5 games from his starting receiver. Like, that just can't get it. You have too many players on the field not producing. And we kind of talked about the receivers not producing last year. So, I mean, I think that might be one of the changes that they would go into the bye week and just be like, okay, we got to move on from Sky Moore and figure something else out. And that might be plugging Mecole Hardman in there. Like, it seems like, I mean, a big problem with picking up a guy at the trade deadline, say you get Terry McLaurin, he's going to have to get this whole offense down, this season. He has basically 9 weeks to figure out the offense and become a big part of it. But Mecole Hardman should already know the offense. Like, he should know a lot of these concepts. He should have the timing down with Pat. So you should feel like, okay, if you need to make a change and put a new guy in here, Sky Moore is just plain not getting it done. You would think he would be the guy that they would slide in there and be able to pick it up. But it is a weird move, just bringing back Mecole out of nowhere. And I don't know. What does he have? 2 targets these 2 games? Like, I'm not totally sure what the idea is there.
I think that the Chiefs found themselves in a really interesting position, kind of stepping up to this trade deadline. I heard Carrington today make what I thought was actually a really nice point, that he said the NFL trade deadline, although it's getting like a little more active these last 2 years, it's never going to be like what it could be if they would just move it back until like Thanksgiving Like, give teams another 3 or 4 weeks, and the good teams are going to rise and the bad teams are going to fall. Like right now, the Raiders are 3-4. You think that they're going to trade Devontae Adams when they're 1 game out of being in the playoffs and they still have 9 more to play? No, teams aren't going to be willing to look at themselves in the mirror and be that honest this early in the season. They don't want to do that. And I think it's a great point on his part that, like, I think that building into this trade deadline thing, like, oh, the Chiefs can really like change the course of their season and whatever. I mean, hey, it would have been nice. But to me, I think that what they do need to do, and this is a point that I think a lot of people have made at this point, but I'm just being agreeable, folks. The Chiefs have got to figure out essentially who they want to give these snaps to, because if they would have acquired a veteran receiver, it becomes like, all right, so who is he on the field in place of? Are you giving up on Sky Moore's development? Are you saying to MVS, you're just not getting it done? And don't get me wrong, I don't think that those are necessarily bad things. But the whole like goal for this year, I think, as far as that wide receiver room was concerned, was like, we need to develop Rashee Rice, Sky Moore, Justin Ross, Kadarius Toney. And only one of those 4 is having the kind of season that you were hoping for. And he's exceeding expectations, but like Sky Moore is not doing what anybody hoped he would do. Neither is Toney. Neither is Justin Ross, who might just be completely out of the picture at this point going forward. And so, yes, the Chiefs are in not the place that we hoped maybe they would be. But again, I mean, do you want to sacrifice the potential development of these young players in order to get a Super Bowl right now? Like, it's not the Patrick Mahomes prime that we're worried about right this second. At least I am not. I'm worried about every second that Travis Kelce has left on a football field. Like, that's where I'm at. I think whatever remains of Travis Kelce's career is very, very precious to the Kansas City Chiefs. And that was my main motivation for saying, well, go get a receiver right now. Just because we have enough that we can probably end up winning the Super Bowl, sure, that's all fine and good. And I don't disbelieve in Andy or Patrick, but like, would everyone feel a little bit more confident with, Hopkins or Evans or Terry McLaurin or whatever, like one of those guys that was a real difference maker? I think I would give up the first round pick to get one of those guys to say, well, I still have Travis Kelce, so let's take advantage of that window. That's kind of where I was making the case, I think, for myself about potentially making a move at the deadline. But the Chiefs are saying that we have enough now and we don't want to mortgage the future because we think we need to keep building, small, essentially.
Which is a philosophy that's worked. I mean, it worked to the tune of a Super Bowl last year.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the process here at receiver is necessarily bad, but the evaluations were bad. I mean, you're expecting more from a second-round pick in Sky Moore coming into the season. You're expecting more from Kadarius Toney, who you talked up all offseason, and you trade a third-round pick for last year, and a former first-round pick himself. You're expecting more from him this season. We've gotten basically nothing from him. The one guy you're actually paying is MVS, so you're expecting more from him. You're not getting anything from him. Like, I don't think the process is necessarily bad here. It's just been the evaluations. You're kind of looking at 3 whiffs there. I don't know if I'd call Toney a whiff because he worked out last year, and he's just such a weird gadget player. I don't know if they ever thought he'd be more than that, but like the wide receiver 1 stuff that was coming out this offseason was kind of weird. So I don't necessarily think that the process is bad here, but the evaluations have gone bad. And then you got to make a coinciding move. I mean, if you're paying another receiver this offseason or something, would you rather have a receiver right now instead of Charles Omenihu? Like, would you rather be worried about the pass rush right now instead of worried about the receivers? I would still lean receivers because you have Mahomes and Andy to pick it up. Whereas pass rush, you just keep throwing talent at pass rush. You want that as strong as possible. Because as long as you have a pass rush and Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be a contender.
I mean, look, we've been talking about the Chiefs offense for 55 minutes. I don't have a problem with that because I think it's what people are worried about. I thought that the Chiefs defense honestly was just absolutely electric against Denver. I thought they were phenomenal throughout the entire game, constantly put in bad spots, stepping up, making plays. They caused turnovers. They had 6 sacks on the day. George Karlaftis, kind of the game of his life. Just seemed like he was everywhere. I know, folks, that I've been saying that, like, one of the things about Tranquil is that I don't notice him very much. I noticed him a lot. Some of that has to do with the fact that the Broncos handed the ball off to whatever his name is, like 100 times in that game. It was actually, I think, 26 carries for their starter. Whichever, I don't care. They've got a bunch of running backs, and I don't think any of them are particularly good. Here's the deal, though. I have to get this off here at the end because if I don't, I'm going to end up forgetting it. I think that Trent McDuffie is the new L'Jarius Sneed. I look at the way that they play him. He is getting the slot snaps that L'Jarius Sneed was getting through his first 3 seasons in the league. They started to kind of transition a little bit last year. But this year it is full on. Trent McDuffie is our slot player. And Sneed is, covering whichever wide receiver, doing a lot of shadowing when it's a top 5, top 10 elite player. But think about the difference between a former safety that probably runs about 6'2", 200 pounds in LJ Sneed and a guy in Trent McDuffie that had some of the shortest arms to be drafted in the first round in the history of the NFL. A guy that is like 5'10", maybe 190 pounds. He is absolutely sensational in the run game. This guy is making plays behind the line of scrimmage consistently, never afraid to get his nose in there. If somebody catches a ball on him, they're basically immediately going down. He's widely considered in a bunch of advanced metrics as like one of the top 10 or 15 corners in the league so far this year. Every time that he blitzes, he is having an impact against the passing game. He does every single thing that the Chiefs ask Sneed to do. And these guys are like so different in terms of the way that their actual physical build is. I'm surprised that McDuffie has been as effective at it, but like, he literally, to me, feels like a like-for-like replacement to L'Jarius, except for the fact that he is shorter, and so there's maybe certain plays that he can't get to, but I also think that he's stickier in coverage than Sneed ever was. We always said that Sneed's worst asset as a corner was his coverage, and now he's, one-on-one out there. I have been so impressed with Trent McDuffie. I think that people were earlier on him than me, but I just see the way that this guy is affecting the pass as a blitzer, affecting the run as a blitzer. He's essentially playing in the box half the time as this slot corner. And when he's out in coverage, it's like, I just am not worried about it. He practically erases whoever it is that he's lined up against. Trent McDuffie.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't even see him because the corner is just not getting thrown at, so you hardly see him throughout the game unless he's making a play. But his smaller stature is actually built better for the slot than like a guy like Sneed, who's taller and lankier, who's traditionally would be more on the outside. Should we pour some out for some streaks that we broke?
Yeah,
a lot of fun streaks came to an end. I think we gotta honor them. Gotta pour one out. I got some Pacifico here. Gonna pour a little out for it. We got
directly on your keyboard. You're gonna pour it out.
Well, I might have a little stopgap here. We'll see. G's come prepared for pouring it out. I mean, the biggest, my favorite, and the hardest to get over. 16 straight wins versus the Denver Broncos. It sucks. Oh man, that was such a glorious streak. I hate the Broncos. It was just such a fun thing. Even telling like casual fans, that was the longest active streak. I think the 3rd longest of all time. Let's pour one out for that. I think I'm peeing on the podcast. How about a couple coinciding streaks here? 40 straight games without losing by more than 4 points. That's an NFL record. That one hadn't been going around as much. It's usually the one score, but also 40 straight games without losing by more than 7 points, which was the 4th longest streak ever. One of the streaks longer than that was the streak to start Mahomes' career. I know that. So let's pour one out for that one.
This is a terrible bit.
What? What?
It's bad.
What are you talking about?
I mean, I'm enjoying it. But I like stupid stuff.
40 straight games with a 4th quarter lead or tie. That streak is over. This is a lot of 40 games ago. 40 games ago was 27-3 to Titans, in case you're wondering.
Okay.
Your streak, we were kind of debating, texting about this. Your favorite streak, 16 straight road division wins. I think Mahomes had 13, or did he have all 16 of those? I'm not totally sure. That was the longest streak in NFL history. We're pouring one out. I don't care what you say.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even hear it anymore because it's so full.
I
And
think
Patrick
the
Mahomes-
number that you might have been, because the 13 or whatever was Mahomes against Denver. He had never lost to Denver, but we had beaten them like 3 or 4 times before Mahomes took over.
Gotcha.
But yes, Mahomes is responsible for the 16 straight road wins against the AFC West.
Gotcha. And then Patrick Mahomes, 35 straight games with a touchdown pass, including the playoffs. That was the longest active streak. Not sure about all time, but that is also over. That's the streaks that were broken on Sunday. God bless I love the streaks. I loved all of them.
The Mahomes never having lost a road game in the division, that one was just near and dear to my heart. I want to say, is that a dog bowl? But I guess it would be a wolf bowl.
Oh, let's fucking go, baby. You know what time it is.
Oh my god, man.
Dolphins look ahead. What do you think? Tyreek's not bad. League MVP.
You know, it's honestly been pretty cool to see what an offense looks like when you build it around Tyreek Hill. Like Tyreek is the focal point of that offense. Like they basically said, this is about Tyreek. He is the number one option, and single thing that they do is about him. It's impressive stuff. It is. I have no idea what to expect in this game from the Chiefs offense, the Chiefs defense, the Dolphins offense, the Dolphins defense. I do not know what to expect. I hope that it is an absolutely unreal. Give me a Rams Chiefs 55-52 or whatever it is. Give me that game. I want to see it just be absolutely crazy back and forth. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, man. Miami's defense has been bad to start the year, but they are absolutely loaded with talent and have one of the best defensive coordinators in the modern era. I have a feeling that defense is really going to turn the corner down the backstretch, and Miami's going to be even more dangerous.
And they're adding Jalen Ramsey back, who came back last week with an interception.
Yep. I mean, he might just go one-on-one against Kelsey potentially. And then you
got to take MVS out of the game.
Yeah, definitely make Ramsey do that. I mean, look,
Wrap up.
the ear pads. I put the ear pads back in there. I got such a big noggin that I can't actually wear this thing. I'll just, hang it out right here.
Go without a helmet, like the NHL guys that refuse to wear helmets in the 90s. God bless those guys. Jesus. And like I said this a few weeks ago, but home field advantage, incredibly important for Miami. I think even more important than it is for Kansas City, despite not having as good a home field advantage, but just not having to go on the road and play in cold weather for a team like that. Not only are they from Miami, but built on speed and everything that they do. It just seems like they would have a tough time, at Buffalo, at Cincinnati, at Kansas City, somewhere like that in January. So I think despite us coming off a loss, I still think it's a bigger game for Miami.
Yeah, I don't want one loss to Denver in awful conditions to turn into 3, given that they've got Miami in Germany on Sunday. and then they've got a bye week, and then they come back and face the Eagles in Kansas City in what promises to be probably the most watched game until the playoffs. So, I mean, I'm certainly excited for the next couple. Still have some other big opponents on the schedule. Looks like the Bengals might be back. Really impressive game against the Niners on Sunday. That's not fun. Was really fun when the Bengals were terrible. Not fun when the Bengals are good again. But just keep that in mind. You know, every team's got to work through some of those like low moments in their season. I have a feeling that the Chiefs will not play a game anywhere near as bad as they did against Denver on Sunday. And so it's all looking up from here, folks.
Hey.
Dirk, are you wearing the costume trick-or-treating?
Yes, absolutely.
You are trick-or-treating as Chiefsaholic. All right.
Yeah.
That is going to be...
How many people do you think over under 1.5 people that get the costume?
I don't know. It was a national story, man.
I know. Yeah, it was. I don't know. This mask, though, it's tough. He has to have doctored it somehow. I don't know how he can breathe in it.
Yeah.
Possible, especially when I start farting. It's impossible. But yeah, it's just this is an exciting game. Should get pumped, and I expect them to bounce back. I think Chiefs roll. Chiefs roll.
That's a 6:30 a.m. kickoff for you.
Yeah, but we do get daylight savings. I fucking hate daylight savings, but we do get it at the exact right time for an extra hour of sleep before that game kicks off on Sunday.
Oh, okay. Don't forget
Daylight
to
savings
call back on Saturday night, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for listening, tuning in here at KCSN. Do the like and subscribe and all those corporate things. You know, and boys and girls clubs, go watch some flag football. Sign your kid up for intramural basketball. And yeah, you know, listen to some other stuff too. listen to the other guys on KCSN. Listen to Only Weird Games. I'm Ryan Scott Hall. He says Dirkness. And Justin Herbert, he's Phillip Rivers.